Alright, so power cleaning is not very heavy, but one of the things that they really made an emphasis on was that we have to finish with our elbows in front of that bar. I cannot finish with my elbow behind that bar. I make sure to receive it in a rack position. That's my finishing position, rack and standing. So what we're gonna do is, we've already talked about cleaning in the past and how do we open up the shoulder and stuff like that, but we're gonna get a little fancy today, and we're gonna actually start incorporating the concept of freestyle. When we look at freestyle movement, what we're doing is we're just trying to look at unconventional things that are out there, or different crafts, and how do they bring those things together to turn them into just basic, nasty performance like you see on a daily basis. Last night I was watching a piece that Sevan did on Ramanov and on pose running, and one of the things that he said is that every single movement is just a series of poses, and that's exactly what we talk about. If you look at any kind of training program that's legitimate, we work through master poses or main poses, and then we work on creating an infinite amount of poses that go from one to another. And how do we train that and how do we prepare that? So in this case, one of the things that we're looking at is this final pose where I'm ending up in a nice front rack where that bar is resting on my shoulders, it's in my hand. And if you listen to Kelly Starrett, a lot of the stuff that we talk about, and he says, is that when our shoulder goes into flexion, it goes in front of us, we need to create external rotation in the shoulder. That external rotation in the shoulder is going to give us torque, going to give us stability, going to give us good positioning, or allow us to create that pose at the end. So once again, we are speaking the same language. Now it's how do we connect these dots? That's what we call freestyle. That's freestyle connection. That's what we all want to be able to do. See movement patterns that are all the same and put them together to create whatever it is you want. So in this case, what we're going to talk about is how can I get my shoulder into flexion and external rotation by doing something a little bit out of the ordinary. One of the things that we see in circus performance is hand balance. And I'm not a very good hand balancer, but there's a thing called like a one-arm lever or lever. I guess it's lever. If I'm butchering that, I'm very sorry. But what we can do is we can grab a box, sit on the box, hands go flat on the box on the corner. I'm gonna have two fingers just facing forward, two fingers out to the side, and the thumb on the box. I'm gonna pick my right arm first. So I'm gonna just go supported on two arms, and I'm gonna wind my body up in a 90-degree angle facing that box. What that just did is it created external rotation in my shoulder. Let's see if you guys can see that. I rotate my body around, I face the box, I'm in a 90-degree angle with my shoulders and the box, and I have both my hands on that box. That just there just wound up my shoulder and got me in a good position. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually sit into that a little bit, and I'm just gonna push down. That push down is gonna get my shoulder back in the socket. So I'm just gonna hang there a little bit, and if you just hang there, you start feeling some stuff happening. You're actually starting to create torque. And this torque is what Kelly talks about all the time. Can we mobilize that position? Can we mobilize the movement? Once I have that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a little fancy, and I'm gonna use that external rotation. I'm gonna bend the elbow, and I'm gonna place my elbow on the inside on this little hip bone right there. So this is my pelvis. On the inside of that little bone sticking out, I'm gonna place my elbow. So I'm gonna take a seat, fingers facing forward and out, thumbs on the box. I wind myself up, sink into it, and I'm gonna press the elbow into that meaty area inside of my hip bone. I'm still winding up the shoulders, and I'm gonna sit into that, and I'm gonna feel some other stuff going on right now. And what I'm starting to see is I'm creating external rotation, a little flexion in the elbow. If I want to load it up even more and I want to get fancy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, load it up, elbow comes in, load that up, and now I'm going to try to load my whole body up by lifting my feet up and just start to balance on that hand. If I can hang there just for a little bit, I'll start feeling that I'm really maximizing this external rotation and a good compression in that shoulder. My shoulder is not off the shelf, it's on the shelf, it's externally rotated and into place. So that's something to work on. Try both sides. Can you get in there? Can you get strong? Can you get fancy with that stuff? Lift one arm up, you're just playing around. You don't want to get too tired. All we're doing is just getting that movement going. another thing that you may notice is that when you do it, that hand position, because you're flat, we're starting to get that wrist ready for the catch. So we've created external rotation, a little flexion in the elbow, external rotation, flexion in the elbow, and now extension in the wrist. That's gonna look something like me receiving the bar on my shoulders. So that's the first thing you're gonna try. Let me apologize for all the construction going on around us. We have to get it done. Doesn't matter where, it just has to happen, okay? Next thing we're gonna do, so we had that external rotation, we had that compression, a little elbow flexion. Now, how can we take this into our real rack? I'm gonna steal this a little bit from Kelly, and if you've been watching his stuff lately, he's been talking about how can I externally rotate overhead and hang, and one of the things that he was working on, he actually grabbed Mark Bell's slingshot, and he put it around his arms, and he would hang in an undergrip and allowed himself to get that shoulder going to flexion. And what that does, it just rips the whole shoulder apart and really gets you into a good position to be able to exaggerate that overhead. But what we're gonna do is we just wanna get this external rotation, the elbow flexion, wrist extension, and get that elbow up a little higher just to be able to create a better shelf. So we can take the band, wrap it around, grab the bar wide, just this external rotation is exaggerated, and start pressing over your head. Can we do some presses over our head? Can we hang from the bar and maybe exaggerate that? If that's not enough, you can triple wind it, quadruple wind it, whatever you want to do. But the fancy one is here, guys. We go here, band is hooked in. Now what do? I lie down on a box or on the ground, and I want to try to actually get into my bridge position. And just trying to get into your bridge here is going to be tricky, because what's happening is as I put my hand down, my elbow wants to flare out. With this band, it doesn't allow it to flare out, so staying inside. We're going to put the band a little higher so it doesn't get in your face, and all we're going to try to do is maximize that external rotation. You may not be able to do it, but you can also find a little buddy in this external rotation as you just put your hands down on the ground. Let me see if I can wind this thing up again. That external rotation, as you put your hands on the ground and going into flexion, gets exaggerated. And that exaggeration is what you're gonna want just to wind the system up and allow you to get into a better rack. You can grab a bar and do it, but just trying the bridge is a good one. If not, go ahead and lie down, do the buddy system, have someone press your elbows in as you get that bridge going, and you'll feel some business happening. And then retest your rack, see if that feels any better.